I'd just like to welcome everyone and thank you for joining us for today's discussion on artificial intelligence. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which the university sits, the Wurundjeri and the Boonwurrung peoples of the Kulin Nation, and I'd like to pay my respects to their elders, both past, present and emerging. My name's Caroline O'Farrell. I work in the Central Careers and Employability team at the University of Melbourne, and I'm joined by my colleagues Sherlyn and Daniel today to support this event. This webinar is part of our Industry Insight series, where we focus a discussion on a growth industry and invite industry guests to share their insights. And today's discussion is focusing in on AI and some of the diverse careers that are available as part of this growing industry. In November last year, the CSIRO estimated the benefits of artificial intelligence to be worth 22 trillion AUD to the global economy by 2030. The federal government's Department of Industry regards the growth and adoption of AI in Australia as key to boosting the economy, solving future challenges, and improving our quality of life. Today, we're joined by two guests, Niaz and James, who currently work in AI in different ways. They'll be sharing their experience, career journeys with us, and the discussion will cover some current trends, career pathways, and tips on upskilling and preparing for a future career in AI. So we're going to start with a poll. So I'll stop screen share. So we're going to get started with a poll. So I'm going to ask you to select which of the following best describes your current outlook on a possible career working in AI. So I'll give you a few seconds to respond to that. Whilst you're completing the poll, I would like to let you know that the session is being recorded today. The recording will be distributed via the Careers and Employability newsletter in the coming weeks. The newsletter goes out on Fridays, and to ensure you receive it if you don't already, you just need to access our Employ Me platform, which is where all of our digital resources are available. This can be found on our website at students.unimelb.edu.au/careers. Okay, and if you'd like to ask questions throughout the sessions today, please submit it via the Q&A function. My colleague will be moderating that chat today, and at the end of the session, we'll have a chance to ask some of those questions. Okay, let's look at the poll results. And here we go. Okay, so 50% say it's a possibility. Quite a few of you, 20%, it's your ultimate career goal. So we have some passionate students in the audience today. That's great. Yeah, another 20% sounds cool. Never considered it before. And a few that aren't quite so sure. So I think that's a good spread. We've got a bit of diversity in the audience today. So hopefully there'll be some new perspectives shared today. So that's exciting. So I'd like to introduce the panelists now. It's with much pleasure that I welcome our guests today. So we're joined by Niaz Ahmed. Niaz began his career designing advertising and studied accounting and fine arts. He has over 8 years experience in digital optimization, and he currently works as a journey expert at Telstra, which is quite a fabulous job title, I must say. We're also joined today by James Gabb. James holds a Bachelor of Information Systems and has experiences across a range of technical fields, including cybersecurity. He currently works as a product manager in Atlassian's Search and Smarts team. So we'd like to welcome you both here today. Thank you for joining us. So I'm going to get straight into the discussion today with the first question. So I'd like to kick it off by asking each of you to share an overview of your current roles, both at Telstra and Atlassian. So we might start with you, Niaz. Can you give us an overview of what your role as a journey expert is and how you work with AI?
So currently I work at, as you mentioned, that journey expert, and my role is purely to optimize the customer journey from and how we can use AI and all the optimization techniques. It can vary from different scales. And the key focus for my role is to understand the business need and how we can use the AI stack, the available tools that in the market to optimize the customer journey. Because in many instances, doing a manual optimization is not possible. So we use the AI because obviously the Telstra got a large volume of customer, and every month we might have 2 million of customers coming to Telstra website, and we cannot cater for everyone humanly. And even when we use the different optimization techniques, sometimes we have to make the decision. So there is the AI that we use, and obviously my role is to understand the business need and work with the data scientists and the ML engineers to see like how we can develop the models and understanding the key business requirements, and obviously identify the opportunity where we can use this machine learning models with connecting with the AI technology. Yeah, that's in a brief what I do.
Great, thank you. And James, can you give us an overview of what you do at Atlassian in this team there?
Yeah, sure thing. So as a product manager, I work with a talented designer and a team lead who owns a range of 20 developers. We use that to spread what we call smart experiences, or experiences that take use of machine learning or AI across Atlassian. And when we think about what sort of experiences we go after, with smarts, it's generally things that are repetitive. So when you're triaging issues, things that use large amounts of data. So think of the user search. When we're trying to predict actions, so like template suggestions, or possibly even surfacing new data or unknowns. So these might be like insights for how your team is functioning. And I guess the key philosophy that Atlassian has on AI is that there's no silver bullet experience that makes a product necessarily smart. We believe that a myriad of these intelligent experiences across our products are going to make it holistically smarter. So there might not be the biggest thing in the world. So there might not be the the next Netflix recommendation, but ultimately it's going to be a series of these improvements across the journey that the user takes across our products. That's gonna leave them thinking that this is a better experience than previous.
Thanks, James. I like the point you made there that it's not always the sexiest looking thing. It's often just things that we wouldn't even notice going on around us. So thank you for that. And AI is changing a lot of industries quite rapidly, including healthcare, professional services, retail, and resources. And it has an immense potential impact on the way we do things in our everyday lives, like you just mentioned. I'll go back to you on this one, James. What's exciting and evolving in AI in Australia, and where is your industry heading?
Look, I think although there's a bunch of different industries like legal and shipping, and I'm sure communications as well, that are taking advantage of AI, I guess the more important thing to note, especially for those at uni right now, is that there's a lot of algorithms that are being put out that are free for or close to free for anyone to use and take advantage of and play around with. And this necessarily wasn't the case 5-10 years ago, and some of these weren't even around 5 or 10 years ago. So if you look at even the way that Google, if you go on Gmail and you start typing an email and it recommends what the next couple of words are for you to type, that's a really difficult algorithm, and that's something brand new and groundbreaking. But in 5 years' time, that's going to be something else that anyone can take advantage of. So I guess the best thing that I'm excited about is all the new algorithms that are coming out for that will be available to use by anyone. In the same way, you can start a website in 5 minutes that you couldn't do 10 years ago.
Great, thank you. And Niaz, what's exciting and evolving for you in AI in Australia?
I guess James's perspective is quite like from a technical one, but for me, as I'm from non-technical, so I guess for me is to see from a customer perspective, what are the things that's influencing us, like as an AI, like as you mentioned in our daily life, even if you think about the grocery shopping at Coles, like if you go to Coles, you're purchasing, and that big amount of data is we are using for AI, putting it into a pattern and then influencing customer to buy something in the next or third day, that they're sending an EDMs showing the product that you bought in last week, and they're guessing that you're going to buy that one. Or so AI is actually for us, from a retail perspective, is actually evolving quite rapidly, because we have identified that customers, every single customers, they actually expect a personalized experience. They no longer want to see the same image or same treatment that hundreds of other people are receiving. So from that perspective, all the companies are actually putting a lot of emphasis on personalizing the experience and across every digital channel where they're engaging with the customers. And imagine that from a retail or service, any perspective, all the companies are actually pushing for more digital conversion, because if you convert in digital, you have to pay less, you have less cost. If imagine that if you're at a store selling handset and you're selling it from an old website, that company is actually saving money. So in future, from a job perspective, there will be a lot of opportunity for personalization expert or expert in that AI field, who can actually not trying to use those technology and understand the business need and the customer need, and like connect the dot. And
Yeah, thanks. I've written down personalization expert as a job title that can be Googled and should be growing in the future. So thank you for that tip there, Niaz. It's great. I might go back to you, Niaz, just quickly. With some of these exciting things that are evolving in this field, what are the challenges that you see as well? And I know often when we talk about AI, questions of ethics and data privacy and these sorts of things do come up. So could you speak to that?
I think obviously AI is not human, so they use the data. From a non-technical perspective, what we see is a tool, but then we have to understand how we are using that AI. Imagine that I create, say, for instance, the company, a retailer is using 14 or 16 offers. They want to show it to the customer. They might use an AI algorithm which will create, say, as a full factorial design. So they might have 128 experiences. But the thing is that how it will impact the customer who is exposed to them, and then how they will ensure that there is no vulnerable customer, because you are not meant to sell a product to customer who got a high credit default rate or has an impulse buying. And that's the area where from retail service and utility, there is a focus for responsible AI, because the AI needs to be responsible, and obviously the human needs to decide on that one and ensure that the AI is a responsible AI. I can give an example of Amazon Hello, the wristband they are introducing, so which is like, it will be in your hand, so it can obviously scan your health and your voice, but at the same time it can also influence, it can also take advantage on you by thinking that you're in a good mood, so they can increase the price of certain product in online. So these are the things, small areas that we need to consider and when using AI.
Wow, that is quite terrifying. Yes, but thank you for that. I might come back to Niaz, because pathways and taking next step is something that we talk about a lot with careers and employability. And like you said, you come from a non-technical background working in AI. So, and you've had quite a unique one at that. Could you share with us your career journey to where you are today?
So obviously, as a person, when I was young, I had interest for arts and music. So, and eventually I studied graphic arts as my bachelor degree. And then I obviously started working as a graphic designer, and I got interest in advertising. So I came to Australia back in 2004. to study advertising, and then once I did the advertising course, obviously I had issues getting internship because I had a dream that I'll work in a international company, um, get some experiences, and so it was difficult back then. So there was not much opportunity for international student to get work experiences. So what I did, I actually did the professional accounting courses. So because that was my another interest area, I thought that this is can be a good pathway for me because I study accounting, professional accounting, and eventually I got back to my design career, which is the advertising designer. And that accounting degree actually came handy for me because I used to work with advertising salespeople, and we used to go to different client doing the design and discussing on the advertising opportunity. And at the same time, I used the visual design skill and also the accounting skill because commerce is a big part in advertising. And eventually from there, I moved to UX because I saw that the graphic design is actually evolving and it's becoming more digital. And I was thinking about the future, and I thought that in future there will not be any print materials. It will be more about digital. So I moved into digital design and did a course in UX. And I moved to Officeworks as an digital production designer and optimization specialist, where I used to work for all the merchandise the managers to promote all the products every week. And in that role also, that accounting degree actually came handy because I had to do the weekly performance report for how much sales is happening based on this design, and could identify that which product will be useful for the next week's promotion. And also at the same time we started working on the optimizations part, and I found that one quite interesting because you cannot keep doing the same design role for whole your life. You need to think about that, or what else you can do. So that optimization was the next level, that where you can see which design is actually performing better and which layout is performing better for a website. And so from there I moved to Telstra as a full-time CRO specialist, where I used to use the tool for A/B testing, layouts, copy, visuals, and eventually found out that there is another way up, which is the AI, which that can allow me to do much more larger scale optimization, and eventually move into the AI role.
Great, thank you. It's great to hear how you found different pathways around, particularly entering the job market as an international student. I know a lot of our international students will value hearing a journey like that. So thank you for sharing that. How can those who study disciplines other than STEM add value in AI? So I know you've demonstrated that you've been able to make those progressions. So what advice would you give to our students that aren't coming from that STEM background? How do they add value in this job market?
I think one of the thing is that a degree is for you to get expertise in certain area, but it will not asking you to stay in that role. Like if you're doing a master's in business or master's in commerce, doesn't mean that necessarily you would be an accountant or commerce person, but it's more like that you have to find the strength. Or I think the most important thing is creative and strategic thinking. So that will lead you to where you want to go. The certain profession where is the degree is the end goal, because that will define what you do. Like say for instance a general practitioner, a medicine specialist, you cannot be a medicine specialist without doing the degree, because you need certain skill to be in that profession, certain recognition and validation. But the other professions are like skills, so you have to upskill yourself, and you have to find your strength of which type of thing you enjoy most. Like for me, I always enjoy tech and arts and like a mix of everything, whereas this what I do now is optimization or customer journey is like that's what it is. So it has to be a visual, copy, content, creativity, and at the same time the technology. So yeah.
Great, thank you. Yeah, creating strategic thinking. I might throw to James now. I imagine that's something that has come into play with you in your current role. And James, you've had quite a diverse career, a brief career as well, I might add. You've had quite a few interesting experiences in quite a short amount of time, which is very impressive. In technical fields. Can you give us a brief overview of something that of some of the experiences you've had that have led you to where you are now?
Yeah, sure thing. So I will add that my career has been one of a classic Atlassian career in the sense that the degree that I did was the same as a lot of the people in my company, as well as the founders. And that led me to do a couple of different, I wanted to try out a couple of different experiences during uni to figure out what I liked and didn't like at the end of the day. Because it's a good training ground to explore different opportunities. So some examples have been, data analytics. I was a business analyst at American Express. Then I did some cybersecurity work at Westpac. But ultimately, I have real passion for startups and for building, my own business. And then that's what ultimately led me to the product manager role. So that's a key part of product management is, leading a team and driving a strategy forward. And that's what really led me to Atlassian at the end of the day.
Right. Yeah, I love that you identified those entrepreneurial skills in your uni life, and that's really what's kind of progressed you to where you are today. Yeah, and that they can be applied not just in a setting of creating your own business and idea, but working within a company as well in that career. So thank you, James. James, I'm going to stick with you on this one. How important have soft skills been to your progression and to getting you and to assisting you in your career working in AI?
Yeah, so I think this question always applies to most areas of working, but soft skills are definitely I would say the most important part. Again, for AI, there are definitely some if you want to go into a technical role in AI, yes, you do need some technical background with statistics, and you need to know what you're doing, and you'd be able to speak that kind of language as well. But in terms of the soft skills, if you think about any part of the business, even for AI, I still need to be able to communicate, why we're doing something, and that's to both internal teams and external customers as well. And need to be able to link up, possible applications of AI towards what the customer actually wants, and to link it within, the customer journey as well. So an example is like if you look at a more customer-facing tool like Facebook. In the past, when you tried to add a friend, it might have just been an alphabetical list of people. But now it'll say the top people you're most likely to add will come up on top. And it's a similar part or similar pathway to what we've done at Atlassian, was identify what are those top things that those top user journeys rather that we can improve. And that's what we kind of focus on. So I guess in terms of those soft skills, like communication of what we're doing, it sounds really simple, but if you get that right, it'll serve you well throughout your career.
Great, thank you. And James, what advice would you give to students studying technical courses similar to what you did, and who are perhaps on a similar pathway based on the experiences that you've had?
Yeah, so I would say the number one thing, especially if you want to focus on AI as well, is to get curious about the industry. This means stay up to date with what OpenAI and what Google and Netflix and I guess the leaders, you could say, in AI are doing, because that's where the real groundbreaking stuff ends up happening. You might not be able to use some of those things for a while, but it's important to stay on top of that and to be curious about that. that also means digging deep. So going into some of the the papers that people write. I know it kind of looks a bit bland and boring, but once you dig into it a bit, you'll see that you build up techniques for how to approach particular problems with AI, because that usually means understanding what algorithm to apply to a particular problem. Is this a linear regression, or is this a k nearest neighbors sort of problem? And the last thing is kind of what I mentioned before, is that there's a lot of these algorithms and tools available for free to be used by anyone today. And that means signing up for any hackathons that involve AI. It means trying to build something yourself, even if it's just following a tutorial on YouTube, getting some sort of exposure to not just having maybe your base technical background in Java or something, but moving to Python and looking at what sort of tooling is used as well in the industry.
Right. Thank you. That's really, really great advice there. Niaz, I might throw to you as well, just on that last point. What advice do you have for students who perhaps aren't studying a technical discipline, but are really looking to forge a career similar to yourself, or in other areas supporting AI development in Australia?
I guess from a non-technical background, there are some avenues that you can take. So the AI from one end is that how to develop the AI. The other area is that how to use the AI tools, like the finished tools. So from a non-technical background, I think it's important to understand the business and the trends and where it's heading, and from a customer journey, like where this AI can play a crucial role and how it will benefit the customer, and at the same time it will benefit the business. That's, I think, the key issue. And the people who are from a non-technical background, they can see like how their skill, if it's a business student, how that person's skill can be useful for doing that thing, that connecting the dot in the business, or if it's a person with trying to be a business analyst, that business analyst can work in an AI team to connecting the dot between the business objective or the sales target with this AI tools, and getting the requirements ready that that person can deliver.
Yeah, thank you. So this question I might actually give to both of you from your different perspectives. What is the best way for students to gain experiences in this field? So you mentioned internships as well. Yeah, what's your advice for students on those experiences? I know, James, you sort of touched on building something yourself, which I love. I think that's great. Yeah, yes.
I think for these experiences, obviously Telstra and many other companies have the grad program, and if within the grad program you have the choice of selecting which part of the business you want to work. And in Telstra, obviously there are opportunities to work in different business areas where they are actually focused on and advanced analytics and AI stuff. So if you can go through the grad programs, and obviously that will give you the opportunity to pick up the roles within AI. That's the way of doing it. And obviously, if there is startup, and they allow internships. So yeah.
Great, excellent. And James?
Yeah, I'd say something pretty similar. Like it's pretty. I guess I would say it's pretty rare to go and apply for an AI role as like a base graduate and just jump right in. And this is literally because if you're on the more technical side, if you're jumping right into that sort of role, you usually have a PhD. And if it's the non-technical side, then you've usually gone in through like other means in the company. But this means that you need to be more aware, I guess, of which companies have these sorts of roles open, because not every company, I guess, has a focus on AI. Like Telstra and Atlassian, obviously two of them. But you're looking at what like rotational grad programs say, because that's actually how I ended up getting into AI as well. Is that I went through a rotational grad program for product management. and then landed in this particular field. In terms of startups, I also think that's a really good place because I don't know, startups end up loving doing things with artificial intelligence and whatnot, and they're usually easier to get at least some sort of working experience with. Ultimately, it's being able to show a passion for that particular area if you're going after those smaller companies as well.
Great, thanks. I like the point you raised there, just about having a passion for it, James. How, and I would put this to both of you, how important do you think that sense of purpose or having that passion or drive is to your success in a field in AI?
All right, I'll take it first.
Yeah.
So I'd say almost 100%. And the reason why I say that is, and again, I think this applies to most roles, is like when you're applying for roles, because I know that a lot of you listening will probably be doing that soon, is questioning, why you're applying for it, and that will help not only you yourself to understand if this is the right pathway forward for you, but it'll also help when you go into an interview. And that's usually one of the questions the interviewer will ask you is like, why are you applying to Atlassian? Why are you applying to product management? Why are you applying for an AI team? It'll really it'll make things a little more crystal clear for, why you're doing something in particular.
Yeah, I agree with what James mentioned. That obviously the why is the biggest question people will ask, and this is something that you have to have the passion. Otherwise, you will not be able to answer the question, because AI is not like that. It will set and not changing. It's changing every quarter. There is new innovation. So if you don't have the passion, obviously you will lose the track of what's the latest trends and what's happening and how it's evolving. So yeah, so if you want to be in an AI role, definitely have to have the passion for that one. So that, and people will obviously understand it if they talk with you, because they will come up with a lot of why questions.
Yes. I'll just wanted to quickly ask, with the change to virtual work and the global pandemic that we've seen in 2020, have you noticed any changes to the industry that have come from this?
I guess because of the virtual thing, it's actually I think that's fast tracking the whole. A lot of the companies are actually fast tracking a lot of their plans, like digitization. A lot of the companies putting a lot emphasis on digitization. I mean, not the software companies like Atlassian, because they are 100% on that type of thing, but like companies like Telstra, NZ, Combank, or utility companies, they're putting a lot of emphasis on digitization, which actually means that there are a lot of work through the AI field, like how the robotics will work in the back end to process the orders, or solving some customer queries. So yeah, that's how it's playing the role, and I think it's been a lot fast tracked in this process.
Great. James, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'd say something very similar. Like through this like fast track of digitization, what that means is more data is now online to be used, and this means from an AI perspective, it means you can start to use some of this data that you wouldn't have otherwise, I guess, had access to before, to be able to help customers or users make better decisions, faster decisions, and it also brings up more problems because now you have more data flowing around. More people interacting with one another online. There's going to be a lot of these, bigger problems that are there to be solved as well by AI.
Great. That's great. I very optimistic, I guess, outlook in a time where that may not have felt that way. So that's good to know that it's sort of been propelling that growth forward. we'll get close to opening up to some questions from the audience, but I guess my last question for each of you is what's an exciting prediction that you might have for AI in 5 years' time? So what's something that's on your, and perhaps I might start with you, James, your to-do list. If you could build anything with knowing where the industry is going, what would you like to see happen? It can be ridiculous if you like.
Yeah, so I think from our perspective, like from Atlassian's perspective, it's like we want to ensure that whatever we're building with AI is actually helping people, and not just something kind of flashy. In saying that, there are always flashy things coming out. So one of the latest things, which maybe some of the people online may have heard of, is GPT-3, which is an algorithm developed by OpenAI. And it's used for, I guess, what you can call conversational AI. With this particular algorithm, you can tell it, you can explain in plain English something you want it to do, and it's pre-trained on pretty much the entire internet to give you back a relevant answer. So an example might be, write a computer program that is a calculator or something, and it will provide you code that does that particular action. Now, this is pretty interesting because we've never gotten to this point before, and taking advantage of this for being able to answer emails or reply to documents automatically or write articles automatically. It is quite scary, but it's also going to be extremely powerful in 5 years when it becomes, I guess, more mainstream and usable by other companies.
Thank you. Yes.
I guess for me, in 5 years' time is more like how the business. I know that it will evolve quite rapidly, and it's inevitable. Like how we will use AI, but all I expect is that it will be the use of AI will be ethical, and obviously the data privacy needs to be ensured, and
Yeah. So there's a lot of work perhaps to be done around the regulatory.
From a business perspective. So my thinking is from non-technical is more like how this can impact our life.
No, I like that. I think the idea of thinking about how it impacts everyday life, not just a business as well, is really useful. So thank you for sharing that. Another question I would ask of both of you is, have you had a mentor play a role in your career progression? Do you have any advice for our students around approaching mentorship or seeking that out as a way to sort of really help guide their career progression in this space? Is there a culture of mentoring in AI from what you found?
I guess it's for me, I haven't had the chance to get a mentor, but it's more for me, it's always seeking knowledge, like going through the right industry forum or the right site. Like if you feel like there is Adobe's experience leak to understand how AI is playing role in commercial side from a commercial perspective or retail perspective. So I think if there is not much mentoring opportunity I came across, but it's more for me like how you can find the information or getting the knowledge.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I would say getting a mentor is a great idea if you can. So usually there's, and again, it is about where you're getting the knowledge from. So it could be, like industry events such as these, or it could be just randomly hitting people up on LinkedIn. I guess the most important thing if you're going down that path is just to have an agenda with what you're trying to get out of a mentorship with that particular person, or if you're being a mentee. So have an idea of, hey, there's a decision that I have, whether it's, I want to learn more about AI or a particular part of AI, or it could be, any industry in particular, actually, and to keep that connection alive, because having those connections of people that have, done things, maybe 5 or 10 years before you have, or even more, is going to be super useful later down the line.
Great, thank you. Thank you both for sharing that today with us. I couldn't agree more, James. I think, yeah, approaching mentors with a clear purpose is a really great way to cement that relationship. Excellent. All right, so we're going to open up to Q&A. There's been a couple of questions coming through. So if you've got questions for James and Niaz, please pop them in the Q&A and we'll get through as many as we can. We've got one here. How is the Australian job market for software developers and data scientists? Which would the panel recommend majoring in for getting into machine learning and AI roles? So quite a specific technical question there. James, do you have any advice for students who perhaps are looking at their major choices? And yeah, any advice on that?
Yeah, so I guess from a definitely in a technical perspective, there is a lot of just analytics roles in general. If you think about the trends that has been happening, as you mentioned just before, it's like, you know, more companies are putting their data online. There's more data to be like even analyzed in the first place, and more people want faster answers. Like more execs want faster answers as well. So in terms of analytics teams themselves, have been growing rapidly. Like when I was at Deloitte 2 years ago in their data analyst team, and when I left a year later, the growth had nearly tripled the team. So definitely like analytics as a whole is growing in general, and this means that there's more teams looking towards, you know, AI and more machine learning aspects as well. I wouldn't say every company is at a point where they have a whole team dedicated towards machine learning. But they're definitely dipping their toes in. Like we've gone from no one in 2018 to now a team of 20 or so people focused on, you know, how we can bring machine learning to Atlassian. And I know like other companies are growing even faster than that.
Yeah, that's some impressive growth there, James. Thanks for sharing that with us. I'd add a follow-up question to that as well. Often that question around choosing specializations and majors at uni, how important is the difference between those technical majors? Is there is it easy if you've gone down a data science stream to then switch into software development and different roles? How important are those streams, have you found from your career?
So I'd say it's pretty interchangeable.
Okay, great.
Like it depends obviously on the degree, but on your passion for what you do outside of uni. Like I'm sure a bunch of you are like writing your own programs or building whatever on the side. And it's really those things that are, you know, where your passion lies. That's what's going to drive your career at the end of the day.
Great. Oh, that's good to know. It's good to know that even in the technical field, there is that bit of flexibility and movement. And that goes without saying, Niaz, for you, where there's a will, there's a way. And you've quite clearly demonstrated that how you've applied your commerce knowledge and your design to forge the career that you have. I'm going to go to the next one. HR is changing dramatically in recent times. How are AI and HR integrated to ensure strategic growth, and are there any upcoming opportunities in this area for international students? So I guess I'd put that to both of you. Have either of you seen the adoption of AI in how it's changing HR?
I think there is some development in of using AI to identify, help the HR to identify the best candidates. But that's for us. The example that I've seen is more in the R&D phase. But yeah, there will be eventually the AI will determine a lot of the things based on your applications and interview process and everything.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, I'd say there's nothing super groundbreaking yet that's in, because it's a lot of yeah in production in development kind of phases, and this applies to you know, most industries as well. If you look at, I guess, maybe new startups coming up in the HR area, usually they'll try to, I guess, apply AI in a particular way, or maybe a new fashion that, you know, some of the larger companies might have not thought of before. But yeah, I haven't seen it in any mainstream HR program that we've been using.
Right. Right, so that perhaps a space to watch. So perhaps we'll have you guys back here in a couple of years' time to be talking about how AI has disrupted and changed graduate recruitment, perhaps.
Oh, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
Great. We've got a question here around UX design, so I might direct that to you, Niaz. Is there a high demand for roles for UX and human-centered design in this industry, and what suggestions would you give to UX undergrads that are looking for an internship or those experiences in UX design?
I guess the HCD or the human-centered design is like a norm now for many of the large companies, because all the companies are moving into agile, all the big companies, and one of the key elements of agility is that you have to understand the customer journey, and for that one is UX is a key component of that one, to identify the customer pain points and everything. The demand, I guess there's a lot of UX people, but it's more on like which area you want to focus. So that's actually the main driver. So you have the UX qualification, but in which area you want to implement that one, in which type of industry, it demands a difference from different industry. And obviously, to get experience for UX, I think the best is to startup is the best place to get some work experience.
That's great. So the startups and I guess the smaller enterprises are a really good entry point. And I imagine it's the same, that advice applies to international students as well, Niaz, from your experience. Great. What other good resources are there for AI news? So I guess, James, you mentioned, staying on top of the industry and being informed and students staying in the know. I mainly read Ars Technica, which is primarily a news source for tech in general. So do you have any other news sources you could point students in? And I'd put that to you, Niaz, as well. Is there anything that from a non-technical perspective in this industry that students should be clued into?
Yeah, I'd definitely say like just think about who the leaders are in AI, right? Like it's OpenAI, which is Elon Musk backed that company. It's Google, Netflix, YouTube. Think of any software that has a lot of algorithms kind of powering it, even TikTok and Facebook. And then you can dig a bit deeper into. I know that Google publish a lot of the work that they do. They have a full blog on Google AI. You can go look it up. And then in terms of if you want to go even deeper than that for how the actual thing works, usually there's AI conferences that are reposted onto YouTube. So if you look up conferences talking about Netflix's algorithm, I know there's thousands of papers on that. Another good source of material in general is Medium, like medium.com, and looking up AI on there. That's where usually people will post relevant new algorithms that are coming out, and that's where usually a lot of discussion happens as well.
Great, thank you. Yes.
For me, I think from a non-technical perspective, how I look at it, what are the available tools for which industry, and for that sort of information, I normally go through all the companies that provide the AI capability to us, like say Amazon or Adobe and Optimizely and all those sort of companies, or Salesforce. So they have all the tools. So for me, as I'm from a non-technical background, I always see the available tool that I can use, and I think those are the areas where I can get the information.
Great, thank you. We've got a question here. What are the important industrial knowledge on top of AI skill sets that will help in this career? And is it difficult to transition in AI from one industry to another? So I think this question really touches on what I mentioned at the start, which is, I guess, the adoption of AI across these huge industries and how they're changing it in different ways. For example, if you want to work in AI in the health sector, how important would that industry, the health industry knowledge be? And is it easy to go between, retail and different services with AI?
I guess for any industry, the moment you want to switch to a different industry, you obviously there is some requirements to understand the industry, but that's not hard that you need to study 6 months to understand the industry. It's just the knowledge of general knowledge and understanding how the market runs. Like if you're thinking of moving from Telstra retail, which is telecom, to retail, pure retail like Coles or that sort of thing. So in that case, I have to understand how the Australian retail market works compared to the telecom, because telecom might act differently than the retail, the groceries, and all those sort of things. So it's more about the basic knowledge you need to know, and the tools will give you the guidance that, oh, this is, I think, how I can use that knowledge, like the AI. Yeah, but the industry knowledge, not necessarily that you have to know, you have to master that knowledge industry.
Great.
Yeah, I'd say pretty similar. Like even moving between teams within a company is kind of the same thing, right? So I guess for product and design and engineering, as long as you're able to take the skills that you already have and just reapply them to a different context area, then there's nothing to stop you moving from to different parts or different industries rather. Like I did the same when I moved from like mobile team. I was in the mobile apps team originally, and then I moved to the smarts team.
Great. Excellent. Now we've got a technical question here, so we might direct that one to you, James. As an AI technician, how many languages do we need to be exposed to be more competent and grasp more professional opportunities in this industry?
Yes, I mean, there's obviously like there's a few basic ones, like be competent in Python and Java, like some basic programming languages that are used more consistently in the AI field, and then also have some knowledge or curiosity about like the latest algorithms coming out, and be able to explain all like the basic statistics, right? Those are I guess kind of the main building blocks. In saying that, you don't need to know everything. The same that applies to most roles as well. I'm sure design as well is like you don't need to know every single technique there is out there, because there's thousands and thousands coming out all the time, right? But it's about I guess having that initial curiosity around it. Yeah, if that kind of makes sense.
Right. Excellent. And I'd put the next question to you, Naz. What's your advice for working with technicians? Do you have any particular advice? Because I know you work, like you mentioned, you work quite closely with data scientists. Do you have any advice for how to best work in that field when you're not a technician yourself?
Yeah, I understand. So for me, I think even when I started working with the ML team, so initially the term they use, I know that all of the terms that I will not understand, because there is so many terms they use, and the languages, and what SageMaker or Notebook, all those tools they use. So for me, the important thing is to understand the process, like what are the stage in their whole, if they want to build a machine learning model, so what are the process they have to come through. So I at least understand that's the process. So when I talk with them, I normally ask, in which stage are you in? So if they said I'm in this stage, or back testing, or testing the model, or doing the data, creating the attributes or features, that's what I need to know, and I understand, okay, he's in that stage. And I think for data scientists, it's important for them to feel like that the people they are working with understand that process. Then it's more comfortable for everyone. And that's also part of the soft skill that you will have to think about when the other person perspective, understand the perspective he's talking. Yeah.
Thank you. That's good advice. Now, one more question for you, James. James, what are your thoughts on Microsoft's recent breakthrough in automatic image capturing?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of companies that are looking at I guess, more ways to analyze more pieces of information, and image is one of them. But there's also been, the one before that was text. And then if you think about, all the other ones out there is like voice, voice to text and speech recognition, and then translation. So in my opinion, it's just like the next evolution, or the next, what I call the depth exploration, that just has to happen. And Microsoft is that's going to be taking care of that, much like Google and Microsoft. These are kind of the guys that have the R&D teams within them to productionize some of these algorithms. What I'd be super interested to see is where they actually end up using it. So I don't know if any of you remember, but I think it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago, Amazon released a camera that could show you in whatever outfit you wanted, and it would tell you if the outfit looks good or not. And that was like a complete failure. And that used AI, but not in a way that was, I guess, useful or production ready. So that's what I'm kind of interested on the Microsoft side, and this applies to new technologies in general as well.
Mm. There's always that element of trial and error.
Actually.
Yeah. I'll just. Okay, we're almost at 4 o'clock, so I think we've got most of the questions done. We might wrap up there, actually. So I'd like to thank our panelists for joining us this afternoon, James and Niaz. Your insights into the ever-evolving world of AI are much appreciated, and we thank you sincerely. And we have a gesture of appreciation coming to both of you as well. So thank you both for joining us today. We're really grateful. Attendees, we encourage you to connect with the Careers and Employabilities to continue the conversation. If you'd like to discuss your career plans, gain feedback on your applications and employment documents, or practice your interview skills, please book in for one-on-one virtual appointments, or visit students.unimelb.edu.au/careers for a range of our digital resources as well. But yes, we'd like you to stay in touch. And finally, thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you to my colleagues Charlene and Daniel for assisting in the event. And everyone have a nice afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thanks.